Long before all this, in Oak Park, Illinois, I was a student. One by one, my friends from high school who hadn't gone on to college had died in Vietnam, while I was obtaining a Bachelor of Science degree in Information Engineering in the new field of computer science. The years went by and my best friend Joe returned safely from the ongoing war, telling me all the gory details and also how to be an effective helicopter door gunner.
Don't sweep from the direction behind the fleeing enemies and into them, but sweep from ahead of them and back into them, so that the leads don't escape, so that they all may run into your fire.
I doubted if I would ever need this information, since my college deferment was holding up fine, and surely the war would end soon. I graduated college and worked for IBM for a year or so, and then the dreaded draft notice finally came in January 1970. I flew the tapes of the Army supply and intelligence systems into Long Bin, installing them there, after having done the same in Okinawa. We were grounded until the next day's morning, due to rockets landing within the fort.
Our previous heli was shot down, all perishing. We have a substitute ship and a new pilot, me. We are clear to go alone.
It wasn't the best helicopter, but it functioned and was armed at the doors and had cannon in front. We had made one installation and were on to the next when we took some fire from the ground somewhere. We had a fuel leak and some smoke. We headed towards the nearest fire base for an analysis and repairs, although there was no answer from them. Upon descension, we discovered that the base had been overrun. They were soon firing at us and the copter strained to ascend, the pilot emptying his cannons. Yet, the onslaught continued. I looked at the pilot and said, "I can do this." And so I took to the left door gun and emptied it into the North Vietnamese troops, putting the box of tapes in front of my legs and feet for more protection. We were ascending, but still within range, so the pilot rotated the ship, and I took to the right door gun, our limited ammo soon running out. I then fired a few useless shots with my pistol. Thanks, Joe. As we cleared the area, and our ship limped very many miles to the next fire base, from which we got an answer and a fine welcome. I had but a minor scratch. I had arrived in the war zone, seemingly the twilight zone. So it was that the DIA general had read the warrant officer's report and had appreciated our initiative, and so we were invited to meet with the wizard. I signed up. My life had completely changed in a day. The CSC PAC unit I ended up in after my selective service draft expands to Computer Systems Command for the Pacific Theater. It was located on Palm Circle, back toward the rear gate of Fort Shafter, on the Hawaiian island of Oahu, and was composed of Special Army, Civil Service, and DIA spooks, it being home base for the Army supply system, intelligence, and nuclear concerns. There was no internet, for this was long before Al Gore claimed to have invented it. These days, I believe the place is still called CSC, but as Computer Sciences Corporation. It was also computer security concerns at some point. Since I had college learning yet fresh in my mind, as well as a year at IBM, I did well on the Army tests, and so was able to choose my destination and duty, even though drafted. The captain, back at my basic training at Fort Polk, Louisiana, had pulled me off of a nearly departing bus bound for my initial and apparently provisional advanced training in artillery at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, an order that had taken all this time, weeks actually, to get changed. He said I was going to work on a nuclear reactor. Well, that wasn't quite it, or even close. I remained as a drill sergeant for a month before the Army got their act more together on the new order. The Oakland, California transfer station was both hell and boredom for a while, as I guarded a dumpster at night lest anyone steal uniforms, although having become a Spec 4 already, and then several days later a noisy cargo transport took us, some tanks and munitions, onto Honolulu. We put in our earplugs. It was glorious, flowered, waterfalled, and tropical, that open-air international airport terminal, with the breathless surroundings plainly revealed just outside the unglassed wall portals. Little did I know then that I was seeing a mountain off in the distance where I would build a retreat, just a tent at first, but where I would first think about the theory of everything at night under the stars. Spurning the barracks after a few days, which were RA, regular Army, and therefore wild, and before further OCDIA training, I moved into a waterfront Waikiki apartment. They had given me the first 3 weeks off. Meanwhile, and even in between my training at the hardcore Shawfield Barracks, I enjoyed some vacation trips to the Army bases in the Far East, some dangerous and some not, delivering computer tape updates of the Army supply and intelligence systems. It was and was not a big deal, but they surely didn't want any of this stuff to fall into the wrong hands, which would only be the Chinese or the Russians, the North Vietnamese probably not even knowing what a computer was for. The previous courier had been just shot down, and none of the civil service guys having families wanted to go, so they and all said,
"Hey, let's send Austin so he can get a taste of the theater of operations."
The first trip to South Korea was rather uneventful, but for having to take a train 300 miles south from Seoul to Daegu and Busan, and then an ox cart from the train. I enjoyed the odor of the open sewage canals alongside the street, saw bicycles piled 6 feet high with crates, noted the complete disorder of all traffic, saw 1,000 Buddhas gazing upon me, and had suits and leather coats made for but a few dollars. No one tried to steal the tapes. To avoid the barracks of the ROK, Republic of Korea troops, I stayed at a sort of bed and breakfast for the long time, not the short time, and ended up purchasing Cho's life from her farmer stepfather for $300, since her mother, the madam, had been expecting her to soon start working there. Her actual father was a GI in the Korean War. All thought that her round eyes made her look strange, but that was only from their cultural view. She looked fine, even beautiful. We entered the US and Guam and settled her in Hawaii in my mountain retreat of a cave. But that's another story. On my next trip to Long Bin and places north, I met the DIA general. I would later transfer into CSG, called Computer Support Group, but the computer part was really counterinsurgency.